The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon. It is Thursday, May 20th, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome for our next 60 minutes of news, talk, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. And helping me make it all happen here from Rolla J Studios in beautiful Potland, Oregon, my friend, the engineer, Ganja John.
Hello, Tokers. How are you today?
Oh, Ganja John, how are you today?
I'm excellent. How are you, Russ?
I'm doing just fine. Yeah. And joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Astoria, Oregon, my good friend and half sister, Cannabis Carrie.
Hi, guys. You're so polite over there. I like it.
Hello, Carrie. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, the weather was insane this morning. It was dark and cloudy and stormy, and now it's beautiful and sunshine. We call this rainbow weather here in Oregon.
Yeah, I woke up this morning like at 9 o'clock, and it was pouring down rain. It was dark. I got up, I smoked a bowl, I looked back outside, and it was sunny and beautiful. So, the wonders of marijuana.
Yeah, cannabis, is there nothing you can't do?
I don't think there is.
Carrie brings us our news right after the first break, and what is in our headlines today?
Well, unfortunately, a disturbing story out of Tacoma. We're going to cover another case of a raid and a chilling description of what went down in one woman's home. We're going to look at the election primaries that were held this week. It looks like a Tea Party favorite has become a dark horse winner. And in honor of Hemp Week, I'm going to talk to you about a little hemp protest in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
All right, Carrie, thank you. We'll be right back with you after this first break. And I've got a couple of breaking news stories that I want to get across. First of all, it appears that Mark Emery, the Prince of Pot, is being extradited right this moment from Canada to the United States to face charges in his plea bargain agreement, which will likely land him 5 years in prison here in America for something that would get him a month and a fine in Canada. Protests are taking place right now in Vancouver, British Columbia. We had the information, we had the information up a second ago, but you can check out the Cannabis Culture magazine, cannabisculture.com. The protest started at noon here Pacific time. It's 1 o'clock right now, 1:03. This is at Victory Square. This is the park at the corner of Cambie Street and Hastings Street in Vancouver, British Columbia. Probably going on now as well. If we've got any of our Canadian listeners out there that can give us more information in the chat room, we'll be glad to spread it here at NORML Show Live. Also in the news, the House of Representatives, the United States House of Representatives, will be voting on a resolution proposed by Representative Betsy Markey out of Colorado to declare Beer Week. Yes, they're going to declare American Craft Beer Week. Now, I like it, American craft beer. I live in Portland, Oregon, which is probably the craft beer capital of America. But the idea that our Congress can get around to celebrating and actually having a celebration of alcohol when we know how much it kills, how much drunk driving incidences, assaults, domestic violences, and puddles of puke are created from alcohol. I don't have a problem with wanting to celebrate alcohol necessarily, but to be able to do this in the House of Representatives and simultaneously not allow cancer patients to use cannabis in the states that have decided that that's okay. Our federal government's hypocrisy is just amazing. Speaking of hypocrisy, we've got some more great stuff on Normal Show Live today. Alan St. Pierre will continue his debate with the hypocrite Brian Darling from the Heritage Foundation. We've got part 3 and 4 of that video we started yesterday. Terry Joyce joins us at the bottom of the hour with Little Jack Harrer to talk about his father, and Groovin' Thursday at the 20 after break. We're right back after this.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hello, I'm Radical Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML and host of Normal Show Live. Medical marijuana is legal in 14 states today, and I encourage you to visit marijuanadoctors.com to find a physician to help you obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in your state. In most medical marijuana states, patients qualify with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis, and other conditions which vary by state. Learn which conditions are covered in your state at marijuanadoctors.com. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, marijuanadoctors.com will help you find a physician online or by phone to obtain a permit for medical marijuana. Marijuanadoctors.com is fully transparent and HIPAA compliant. Call 866-996-9333 today or visit marijuanadoctors.com. That's 866-996-9333 by phone or online at marijuanadoctors.com.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Normal News with Cannabis Carrie.
A disturbing story out of Tacoma this week reported in the Seattle Weekly about the recent raid targeting a dispensary in Washington state last week. In a month that saw SWAT raids being spotlighted for their violence, a patient coordinator for the North End Club 420 that was raided last week has given a chilling account of the narcotics enforcement team's visit to her house. 3 locations were the target of an ongoing investigation into the marijuana club that was distributing medical marijuana. Authorities believe the group was selling marijuana to people without prescriptions and reportedly have audio recordings of illegal transactions. The team reports that they are not targeting any legitimate producers or medical users. But the tactics they use sound all too familiar. Christine Casey tells the Seattle Weekly that when agents came to her house, they handcuffed her 14-year-old son for 2 hours and at one time put a gun to his head. They told him to say goodbye to his dad, Guy Casey, because the dispensary owner was going to prison. As the detectives looked through the house for cash to prove that the dispensary was illegally profiting from pot sales, Casey reports that they confiscated $80 from a Mickey Mouse wallet belonging to her 9-year-old daughter, who had received the money from a family member for getting straight A's on her report card. Police dumped out all their silverware, broke a hole in the wall, broke appliances, and she is also alleging that a police officer wrote, "I sell pot," in dust that was covering the family's Hummer, which the police later seized. Casey says her daughter had just got on this bus for school when the detectives arrived at their home around 8:30. According to court documents, police found close to $3,000 in cash in the home and 76 marijuana plants. Casey and her husband are both medical marijuana patients. State law in Washington outlaws the sale of marijuana, medical or otherwise.
Well, at least they didn't shoot any dogs this time. Nobody got shot, no gunfire going on. Well, if you're going to look for a silver lining, I guess that's it. But this is not an uncommon story when we talk about these raids. Oftentimes in California, they call them smash and grabs. And the point is not just to put the people out of business or to arrest them or investigate them for any particular so-called crimes, but also to instill fear, to terrorize, and to destroy their equipment, to destroy their storefront, to destroy any of their display cases, so that it would make it harder for them to reopen in the future. I can't imagine if we were talking about any other business business that that's the way that the police would go about it. I mean, suppose someone was running a restaurant and they weren't paying their taxes. They wouldn't go in there and start destroying everything in the restaurant. They only do this for marijuana. And again, their concern here is that there's going to be abuse of marijuana. There's going to be some sort of abuse. You know, for some reason, if someone comes in and buys it and they've got a condition of some sort, that's different than if they don't. Even though the abuse would be what? Someone gets high, gets the munchies, it doesn't cause harm to society. And Washington, of course, is a different situation because no buying or selling of marijuana is allowed. But again, now we're talking about these medical marijuana laws where they have to defend on the weed ferry, right? We got so many of these states here, I think 7 or 8 of them, that allow patients to have medical marijuana for a qualifying condition, but where they're supposed to get it is from the weed ferry, I guess, because they don't have dispensaries. They don't have any way for people to buy or sell. Here in Oregon, we have what we call the Mother Teresa model. If you can get people to give it to you for free, that's perfectly okay. But if otherwise, there's no way to get the cannabis. People are trying to change that with dispensary initiatives here in Oregon, in other states. But I'm also hearing in other states how states are trying to pass dispensary initiatives and take away the right to home grow. For example, in Rhode Island right now, there's a bill that's being heard to take away people's right to grow at home because they've got dispensaries. In Oregon, we heard the Multnomah County Assistant District Attorney talk about, well, if they're going to have dispensaries, there's really no need for them to grow at home. All of this is such a messed up situation. The raids in Tacoma, the raids everywhere, all because we continue to maintain this ridiculous distinction between patient and criminal. Until we go forward with allowing everyone to have the cannabis that they want to get with reasonable regulations for adults, these things are going to continue.
Many election primaries were held this week, and in Kentucky, a Tea Party favorite wins a fiery nomination in part for his stance on marijuana. Political novice Rand Paul, son of popular Senator Ron Paul, won the GOP nomination for a Senate seat in Kentucky. Rand Paul is a far-right-leaning Republican who started his bid far behind Secretary of State Trey Grayson, the handpicked candidate of Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. But Paul surged past him due to his support of Tea Party members and his plain-spoken style and call for smaller government, term limits, a balanced budget amendment, and a requirement for lawmakers to read every word of legislation before it passes. He also came out in favor of medical marijuana. Grayson and his allies sought to portray Paul as a kook, citing his support for legalizing medical marijuana and his view that America's interventionist foreign policy is partly to blame for 9/11 terrorist attacks. It seems that this characterization caused a backlash as Paul supporters rallied behind him, helping reinforce his image as a political outsider. Paul trounced the favorite by 24 points. It just may be that the excuse for a politician to say support for cannabis law reform is a liability may have just expired.
Yeah, exactly. This is a GOP primary we're talking about in Kentucky, right? So we're talking the conservative of the conservatives coming out, a very rural base of support as well, coming out for a candidate who's open and honest about cannabis and the need to end this idiotic war on drugs. A GOP primary. Now, there's a whole lot of other things we could say here. We could allude to the whole Tea Party example and maybe that carrying him up, a general anti-incumbent mood in America. And certainly with Rand Paul and his dad, Ron Paul, there are other issues other than cannabis. I always think people should look at the entire candidate. But the time is coming here where we can no longer cast our votes for candidates who openly support putting us in prison, openly support locking us up for our responsible use of cannabis. So to see Rand Paul winning this primary in Kentucky is an amazing thing. And again, like Carrie says, I believe this gives the cover to other politicians now to look around their political landscape and realize that with the support for medical marijuana reaching 70 and 80% support in some places, it is becoming more of a liability to be against medical marijuana than to be for it. And certainly with the issue of legalization, it's not so cut and dried. With the issue of legalization for all adults, our support is barely topping 50% in the West Coast, and back east and back south, it's still in the 40 or high 30% range. So we may not see as many politicians coming out openly and honestly for full legalization, but with this victory by Rand Paul, I do think it is a step in the right direction.
And our ongoing look at Hemp History Week, a man dressed as George Washington and a very small group of hemp activists protested outside of the Justice Department on Wednesday. They demanded that Attorney General Eric Holder allow all U.S. farmers to grow industrial hemp. The group traveled to the protest in a van powered by waste vegetable oil and hemp oil, taking advantage of Hemp History Week to help highlight their message. The gentleman playing George Washington brought a gift for the Attorney General of the United States, a 50-pound bag of hemp seeds. They want to remind Americans that before 1937, when marijuana was classified as a narcotic drug, hemp was a stable crop of many American farmers and several former presidents that also grew the plant. Since the 1950s, U.S. farmers have been effectively banned from growing cannabis or industrial hemp. Currently, Hawaii, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Montana, North Dakota, Oregon, Vermont, and West Virginia have removed all barriers to the production or research of industrial hemp. And then, Russ, just very quickly, I wanted to point out that events for hemp marches and events are typically much, much smaller than those for cannabis. That's just the facts. But a lot of co-op type health food stores and farmers markets all over the country this weekend are planning on featuring hemp booths and hemp products to celebrate Hemp History Week. So I just want to encourage any stashers that are lucky enough to have a little downtime this weekend to actively look for hemp products, shake the hands of those that are selling it, or better yet, make some votes with a couple of bucks when you see a hemp product. I know it's expensive, but humanity needs us to win this war against industrial hemp for our survival, maybe even more than the flowering variety that we love so much. So fall in love with hemp and become passionate about protecting American farmers and our precious environment.
Yeah, I would say anybody who is a marijuana law reformer, an activist, you want to call yourself an activist, you should at least own one piece of hemp clothing. I've got a few. I've got T-shirts, a lot of them that are 55% hemp, 45% cotton. I've got these 100% hemp hats, and they are more expensive. But again, you got to put your money where your mouth is. If you really support this issue, you've got to make it economically feasible for the supporters of hemp to continue lobbying our legislators to allow them to grow the hemp. And, Carrie, you and I both grew up in Idaho, very southern Idaho. There were a lot of farmers around. Do you remember the parades they used to have, the protests where the farmers would get on their tractors and go to the state house? Do you remember a few of those?
I just thought that's how farmers got around in Idaho.
No.
But yes, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
with the kids up there. Yeah, everybody like a big parade. I loved it.
Yeah, that's what we need for the hemp issue in some of these rural states, is for the farmers to get behind it and say, hey, we would like to be able to replenish our soil. This is one of our hemp facts, is that the hemp plant has such a deep taproot that it helps to replenish and regenerate soil. It makes a perfect rotational crop in between, if you're going to grow corn, you're going to grow wheat, you're going to grow potatoes or onions, whatever. But in between, you can use hemp in between harvests to be able to help replenish your soil. Another thing that we should point out here, and get real close here because we don't want everyone else to know about this, is that the Canadian government actually encourages their industrial hemp producers to grow the hemp near city limits because they want the hemp to cross-pollinate any outdoor marijuana crops and make that outdoor marijuana no good. I mean, we don't want to, I don't know if we necessarily want to tell everyone that, but hey, that's something that's going on right there. And one thing about that is it does at least get rid of that myth that we would grow hemp to plant marijuana in between it, to hide it. That's one thing there. Carrie, I know we've been doing the hemp facts for our Hemp Heritage Week, so did you have a fact ready to go?
Sure. Actually, today I thought I would share, it is a hemp fact of the day, but this is actually about cotton. Maybe people don't know that cotton uses 225 million pounds of herbicides and pesticides annually in the U.S., according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And worldwide, cotton uses half of the world's produced pesticides. So we all know that anything that can be made out of cotton can be made just a little bit better with hemp.
My hemp fact for the day has to do with hemp paper, that an acre of trees. An acre will produce 4 times as much paper from hemp as it would from trees. Hemp paper is resistant to acid and fading, and that's why so many documents back in the day were, in our history, were written on hemp paper or parchment to resist mildew and acid and fading and so on. And just in talking about the use of paper for our packaging in all the products that we buy, from boxes of cereal to TVs to whatever, all the paper that we use in packaging, only 10% of it is post-consumer recycled. A lot of times they'll fool you by saying, oh, we use X amount of recycled paper, but what they're calling recycled is the stuff that falls off the edges of the rollers when they do the first roll around, and then they'll pick up all that extra and run it through again. So it's really the first time it's been through, it just fell out of the machine the first time. Only 10% is actually post-consumer waste. If we were to replace the paper packaging that we use today from paper with hemp, not only would we do so much to reduce problems with our landfills and deforestation in this world, but forests of hemp plants, big old hemp plantations, can actually be carbon negative. They can actually reduce the carbon footprint of that land to less than it would be not being developed at all.
Also, as some of our Rasta friends will tell you, hemp paper makes excellent rolling papers.
Gotcha John's absolutely right. Hey, speaking of rolling papers, let's put them to use. We'll be right back.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Law420.com.
Hello, I'm Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML. In my job, I read literally hundreds of headlines each month involving nonviolent, productive citizens whose lives are ripped apart by a marijuana or drug arrest. Many citizens could avoid arrest by refusing police searches and remaining silent, but police are well trained to confuse and intimidate. That's why you have a right to speak to an attorney before answering any police questions. I hope you never need to exercise that right, but if you do, make your first call to the law offices of John C. Lucy IV. John Lucy is an accomplished criminal defense attorney with expertise in Oregon's medical marijuana law. John Lucy understands and respects cannabis and drug consumers of all backgrounds. Call John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit in downtown Portland. Address available at law420.com. That's John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit law420.com today.
Michael Phelps, Olympic superstar, 14 gold medals, world record holder. Bomb smoker. So much for that amotivational syndrome.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our pod-safe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday, our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show in Denver, Colorado. Accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org or mail your CD to NORML Outreach, 4110 Southeast.
JohnDoeRadio.com. John Doe here with your Groovin' Thursday tune for Normal Show Live. Dukes of DeVille are from Georgia. Their MySpace page, yes, I said MySpace, says their sound is distinctively fresh with its southern-influenced slang and syncopated lyrical delivery. And regarding MySpace, it's still a great place to get music. It's one thing that they did well, I think. Get unheard artists and music out. Anyway, you can't argue with a great tune like Cry Baby. The sound of this group is a little different than most. Dukes of DeVille have been around making mixtapes for a long time and have made some great connections in the industry, both with other artists and with record companies. In 2006, the Dukes of DeVille were signed to their own record company, Track Addicts Music, with a joint deal on Capitol Records. But due to creative differences and lack of artist support, Dukes left Capitol Records in February of 2009 and have been working on their own music independently ever since. Check out a great tune called Cry Baby from Dukes of DeVille. Till next time, I'm John Doe. See ya.
Dukes of DeVille. Done it cross. Cry baby, gon' cry. Cry baby, gon' cry. Cry baby, gon' cry. I don't know about the world, but I know of a girl. I don't care, I'm aware. She makes me cry, baby, cry. She made me kiss her cousin. I wanted her, but she wouldn't. It's not the same. It's such a shame. She makes me cry, baby, cry. I know this girl, Onion's her name. Persuasion with curls, bada bing. When I made her pass it up, she wasn't fair to me. Her only wish was to get rid of me. My things have changed now that I've gained, but it's too late, 'cause I've got a main girl that don't restrain her, even contain her. She wants to be with a young entertainer. I don't know about the world, but I know of a girl. I don't care, I'm aware. She makes me cry, baby, cry. She made me kiss her cousin. I wanted her, but she wouldn't. It's not the same. It's such a shame. She makes me cry, baby, cry. Oh, cry, baby. Oh, cry, baby. Oh, cry, baby. Cry, cry, baby. I can remember it was September, and she was the baddest girl I seen. Guess I was too shy, or she was too fast. I smiles at her, she passed it me. A few years had passed, I asked her to the prom. Though she was in college, she still had me gone. Put up in my Honda, looking so fresh. But out comes her sister in the prom dress. I don't know about the world, no, but I know of a girl. But I don't care, I'm aware. No, makes me cry, baby, cry. She made me kiss her cousin. I wanted her, but she wouldn't. It's not the same. It's such a shame. She makes me cry, 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 cry. Something must have flown in my eye. Probably count supposed to be high. Heart feeling like I'm about to die. Using my allergies lie. I'm with baby, but all I could do was think about you. Passing those 2 years in school, if you feeling me, something number 2. Must be a beautiful smile. Better yet, just have a little style. Wish I could tell you out loud. Baby girl driving me wild. Hanging out with you cause just to see if I can get closer to you. Hate to sound like a sucker, but I do anything you want me to do. Now that we've grown up, time has passed and a whole lot of things changed. Trying to get up in the club, guess who it is calling my name. Now you wanna keep it when you used to tell your friends I was strange. Bye baby, go cry baby, I ain't really got time for the game. I don't know about the world, but I know of a girl. I don't care, I'm aware. She makes me cry, baby, cry. She made me kiss her cousin. I wanted her, but she wouldn't. It's not the same. It's such a shame. She makes me cry, baby, cry, baby. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 420 somewhere.
All right, time to check NORML's Cannabis Community Calendar, which you can find at norml.org/calendar. Right now in Vancouver, British Columbia at Victory Park, there is a protest for the extradition of Mark Emery, who is on his way to the United States as we speak right now, Pacific time. So if that protest is still going on, my Canadian listeners, please get out there and let your voices be heard. Taking place here in the States, Schoolcraft County NORML in Michigan will be having their monthly meeting at Hypnotic Hydroponics in Manistee, Michigan, and Philly NORML will be having their monthly meeting at twice monthly meeting. They meet on the first and third Thursdays of the month at the A Space in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Check phillynormal.org for details. Friday, May 21st, the South Central Michigan Compassion Club fundraiser is taking place. For directions, call Trina Moss at 517-869-2694 or contact OneGirl at frontiernet.net. That's ONE, OneGirl at frontiernet.net. Saturday, May 22nd, Oregon NORML is having a general membership meeting. All members of Oregon NORML, cardholders or not, are welcome to join. Information on this was available at Oregon NORML's website, ornorml.org. It'll be an outdoor meeting taking place at a park. I believe they're having a cookout. It'll be very, very nice. I'll be there as well, so stop on by and say hi. Cincinnati area in Ohio, Miami Valley NORML is having their meeting. Check out mvnormal.org for information on that. And more free Mark Emery rallies taking place in Denver, Colorado and Seattle, Washington, plus probably other places in the country. If you're having a free Mark Emery rally this Saturday, please let me know. Send me an email at stash@normal.org. We will promote it. The Denver rally is taking place at the U.S. Courthouse for the 10th Circuit on Stout Street in Denver. Check out Mile High NORML or coloradonormal.org for details. And the Seattle one is taking place on 2nd Street at their federal courthouse in Seattle, Washington. More information available at our NORML Cannabis Community Calendar at norml.org/calendar.
Weed.
That's Ruby Valley, hoo-wee-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce.
Well, it's always good to talk to Terry Joyce. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm doing so good. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Southern California. And, Radical Russ, I have to say, I got my first marijuana plants where I'm actually growing 5 plants. I'm very...
Wow. So what's it like? How's it going so far?
Well, when I took them up to my apartment, I was thinking, wow, this is a plant. It has consciousness, and it's this beautiful plant. And then I was thinking that maybe one of my plant was talking, going to the other plant, oh, we're going to get Terry really, really high.
I see.
So, and then, the problem is that my cat, Mr. Puss, keeps eating the leaves. That's not good.
No, we don't want the cat eating the leaves. Keep the cat away from the plant.
But I'm trying to, but he likes it.
Well, we all like it, don't we?
It makes
yeah, but nitrogen will kill it.
Yeah, we don't want that. And joining us, we've also got a guest here. Terry always brings us interesting guests from the Southern California area. Tell us who we have today.
Actually, I have a little Jack as our guest today. He is Jack Hare's godson, and he's here because I brought him to the show because he's been doing a tour, which is a benefit for Jack Hare's medical bills. And we're doing a show down here in Los Angeles at Club Fado Dough this Sunday. And I just wanted to have us talk about Jack, and let's welcome little Jack. Yay!
Hey, little Jack.
Hey.
So, welcome.
How are you doing today?
We're doing good. Welcome to NORML Show Live.
Thank you. I'm looking over Ocean Beach right now in San Francisco.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day.
So you were Terry was mentioning something about a benefit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, me and my friend Janice Johnson, I call her my sister. We've been longtime friends through Jack Hare and Doug Seaton, TC, and Captain Ed O'Dare. There's a lot of his kids that grew up around all of them growing up in L.A. And so we started this tour, putting it together back in January to help him out with his medical expenses. And then he passed away a month ago. But Mark, his son, turned to me and says, why don't you just follow through the tour? And it'll be kind of, bring in what money you can for him. And it'll be a memorial tour for the people that couldn't come out to the funeral. So we've been doing shows from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles. We have a show this Friday here in San Francisco at Cafe Kokomo with Ranking Screw, Klondike as our headliners, and Devil's Boots. Devil's Boots is a band that's been playing doing the whole tour out of their own pocket, and they're really good kids. So all the bands have been coming and playing for Jack. We've had speakers, and Terry can tell you more of the speakers. We have Jeffrey Peterson, who's going to be our MC. We have Turius DeGracius, who's our headliner in Los Angeles. And those guys are from P-Funk, Bad Brains, and Fishbone, and Red Hot Chili Peppers. So that's a really good lineup there.
So this is the show this weekend?
Playing down. Yeah, it'll be on Sunday in Los Angeles and then Fridays in San Francisco.
Okay.
We just did a show in Arcata, and before then, we started in Seattle, then we went to Olympia, then Portland, and Eugene, Arcata, and then we'll have Frisco this Friday and Los Angeles down in Sunday, and then next month at the end of June we forward our date for the San Diego show because we want to do a camping show and we want to bypass Memorial Day weekend on that.
Right. So is there a website somewhere where people can get all these dates and more information?
Yes, we have a Facebook, a MySpace, and also a .com of We Love Jack Hair, or We Love the Hemper Jack Hair. And you can find us on all three of those. You can go to High Times. They have a bubble on High Times website that goes to all their links.
Excellent. All right. So we'll get all of those available for folks up on our website as well so that they can cross-link and find out more information. Now, Little Jack, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Jack Herer, the man, and, he'd been fighting for marijuana to be freed for so many years. How do you feel about that Jack feels and was looking forward to the changes that he's seen in his lifetime, and how do you feel about him missing what's happening now?
Well, I know one thing that and we foresaw this about when the 215 passed, that it was going to subsequently interfere with the legalization of hemp because it would put it on the back burner. And it has. It hasn't really put it on the back burner, put it in the backyard. There's not that much focus anymore on the legalization of hemp compared to medical marijuana cannabis. And, I've been in the movement since I was 14 with Jack, and I'm 42 now. And, but, we're always we just passed the legalization of hemp in Oregon. And I'm friends with Gary Cook, who's the president of NORPAC, and he's fully for it. So South Dakota has it, and we're pushing on a lot of issues. Montana, we want to do one up there pretty soon.
It seems odd, too, that it's so hard to get any headway made on the industrial hemp issue when, it's just so not a drug. We're able to get medical passed and people understand that, yes, it's medical, it's medicine, but they still think of it as a drug, and yet they'll allow cancer patients to use it and people with pain to use it. But we can't let our farmers grow something that's not a drug. What sort of insights did you gain from Jack and in your own activism about the hemp movement and what it could do to get more traction?
Well, what it can do is, like we've always talked, 1 acre of hemp can produce fuel for a car for a year. And one little rebel thing that we used to do, because growing up in Southern California, Mexican sativa is plentiful and always comes with seeds.
Right.
So we would save all of our seeds in big bags. And then once we got so much, we would take it and put fertilizer with it and mix it with non-bleached paper towels and make little glue balls. And we used to drive down the 405 freeway in the San Fernando Valley because they water and maintain the hillside. That is costing the taxpayers for weeds. And so we would throw these goo balls out the window out there on the side of the freeway and try to, overgrow the government.
Right.
I wish people would pay attention where the taxpayers go to maintaining bushes and shrubs on our freeways to where we could actually grow industrial hemp there.
Yeah.
And be supplying fuel for all of our communal cars in our city, our public transit systems.
Yeah.
Just by growing it on the side of the freeways.
Yeah, that's such a waste, all that land, when you think about it. Terry, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in here because I know you've probably got questions for Jack.
I think it's really wonderful that we are talking about hemp and what hemp can do for the planet in terms of making fuel, and because our planet is really in a bad way, I think, from the fact that we're so oil based. And I find it interesting that we are focusing more on the medicine as opposed to what could happen to what we need to focus on to make the planet better. And so I'm just excited to hear little Jack and the history of what he's lived. And, I think the legacy that Jack Hare has set in motion, I don't think it's over. I think that we're going to keep going, and it's just going to snowball into a great change that's going to happen here.
Right on. And Jack, as we're trying to promote hemp this week in our program, you gave some great statistics there on the use of it for an automobile fuel. We're looking right now at the oil spill on the Gulf of Mexico on the floor of the ocean down there in the Gulf of Mexico. Devastating. Just devastating our Gulf Coast, and where we get, I think, something like 80% of our shrimp and mussels and other shellfish. So let's speak to that.
Yeah, and the chronic thing, the ironic thing about that is if people paid attention to the news, that's prior to the oil leak, 3 weeks, Obama opened up the Gulf of Mexico for offshore drilling.
Right, that's true. Yeah, the timing. And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, that oil rig originally exploded on 4/20. And it makes me think, does Mother Nature have a hempy sense of humor here? Or, is she trying to tell us something by... So to wind this up, Jack, let's talk a little bit about growing up, and you grew up around Jack Hare as he's doing all of his activism. How did that affect you, aside from turning you into an activist? Just as a kid, as a young person, being around Jack Hare, what was that like for you?
It was very interesting, and the people that surrounded Jack and Ed O'Dare, like TC was my uncle. And then there was Steven and just the piano man and all the people that surrounded with Jack and Ed O'Dare, growing up in the 70s and the 80s and stuff with all of them, being like Richard Marcellus, who started the Hemp for Victory, one of the first hemp shows on television. And it was very, and George Clayton Johnson, the writer of Logan's Run and stuff, such an educated man. Has a big impact on people.
Yeah.
Being around Bruce Margolin, who lived across the street with Timothy Leary, and being around that whole clique of people, I feel I was blessed.
Yeah. Amazing life that you've led. And little Jack, I appreciate you being here on the show with us. Terry Joyce brings us our Southern California scene every other Thursday here on Normal Show Live. And Terry, before we let you go, any other updates we need to know?
Well, I'm going to be performing too on the show on Sunday, so please do come out. And that's really my most current update. It's just the benefit on Sunday, and just wanted to make sure that little Jack got on the air and we were able to shed some light and some publicity and some information.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
And also Rob from 420 Mag has been doing a lot of outlet for us out in the LA area, which has been a really good blessing for us too.
All right, fantastic. Everybody check out the show.
A lot of people have come together and helped us with this tour, like Terry.
Right on.
It's been really good.
Check out the tour. Check out the shows. The benefit for Jack Hare will be coming on here soon. We'll get the information up on our website here at stash.normal.org. Coming up next, the remainder of the debate, if you want to call it that, between Brian Darling of the Heritage Foundation and Alan St. Pierre from NORML. This is Normal Show Live.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
Do you really want to legalize marijuana? Prove it. Join NORML today at NORML.org, and your donation will help us spread the growing truth about cannabis. Free speech ain't free, you know.
Free the ganja tree, it's the healing of the nation. Free the Cali weed, good for meditation. Free the pot smokers, they're in a delight. Lighting up the chalice, they keep no malice. Free the marijuana.
The effects of marijuana prohibition are felt by all Americans in every walk of life, regardless of race, creed, color, religion, party politics, social status, wealth, gender, sexual orientation, or even one's use or non-use of marijuana. As the marijuana smokers lobby, NORML hears the stories of these average Americans and brings them to the attention of our policymakers and our fellow citizens in this segment we call NORML Newsmakers.
All right, it's 46 after the hour. Yesterday we had played some video from Alan St. Pierre, the executive director of NORML. He was on the ABC News online Nightline. They have a thing called a Twitter cast where he was debating Brian Darling from the Heritage Foundation on the legalization of marijuana. And we played the first two portions yesterday. We're going to play the second two today. We take this in from where we cut off on yesterday's show. Alan is responding to Brian Darling here on the subject of legalization.
Authority that I don't usually cite, the Obama administration. They have found that marijuana is associated with dependence, with respiratory and mental illness, with poor motor performance and cognitive impairment.
Brian,
that doesn't sound like a good drug to me.
Brian, you could read the same list for alcohol. The point is, I'm trying to get you to expand beyond your clear bias for alcohol.
Wait, hold on, let me get in here.
ABC News Now. Good to know.
People who do have problems and need other drugs actually are self-medicating with marijuana. Is that the people that are in that study?
Well, often what happens is that people who don't have access to, for example, young males who are not in a public school setting where, ironically, think of the context we're talking about here. A third of males who are in the public schools consume a form of amphetamine for ADD and ADH.
Right.
Yeah. So... Yes, many of those people who don't have access to those drugs legally are self-medicating with marijuana.
And there was a commenter who said that a lot of people, that stoners give people a bad name about alcohol, or about marijuana, give people the bad idea about marijuana, but that there actually are a lot of people who are professionals like the two of you who are smoking in their homes on the weekends.
Well, not me, not this guy. But let me just say something.
Just having a drink and
be
chewing
allowed
tobacco.
to say one thing, maybe. Yeah, I love to chew tobacco. Now, let me just tell you something about the difference. We have a long tradition in this nation of tobacco use.
Yeah.
We have a long tradition and a battle over alcohol use. Now, as a society, can I just finish maybe, and then you can reply?
Yeah.
Now, as a society, we've drawn lines, and our lines are: we don't allow heroin use, we don't allow cocaine.
We don't
allow crystal meth, and we don't allow marijuana use. And to open this door out in California is going to make our medicated society even more medicated.
Brian, can I get you back to reality? You know, the law didn't allow...
in reality.
Excuse me. Did the law allow black people to vote? Did the law allow women to be part of society? No, the law can be wrong, Brian. I can't believe you would hang the entire argument here, the fact that
I'm saying we have traditions. We have a tradition.
By the way, Brian, the traditions...
Society allows a lot of things that are bad for you. I agree, but that doesn't mean we should allow more things that are bad for you.
Well, by the way, we're only now seeking to control something the government failed to control 73 years ago. But you speak of tradition. Hey, Brian, what did those founding fathers grow on those plantations, Brian? What did the Washington Post... No, excuse me. They grew hemp. The first order of commerce in this country was hemp.
Right, but were they growing it to smoke, or were they, Helen, were they growing it to smoke, or were they actually growing it to make clothing and
They grew it for three reasons. They grew it for medicinal purposes. They put it in tinctures. They did grow it to smoke. We can see from the forensics of testing the pipes that they used that they did smoke it. But yes, pointedly, they used it mainly for
Thomas
industrial.
Jefferson sitting around having a toke in the evenings.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
they might have never written all the great documents they wrote in those Federalist Papers.
Thankfully, they did write those papers, and blessedly, even the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp. You know that, Brian, don't you?
They didn't smoke it, thank goodness, or we wouldn't have it.
Yeah. Well,
okay, wait a minute. Let me ask both of you. Let's talk about the economics of this. Is California, which is a cash-strapped state at the moment, is California looking at legalizing marijuana so they can bring in that revenue?
There is currently 5 states that are looking to legalize marijuana: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Washington, Nevada, and California. Californians are going to vote on it. 1 out of 8 Americans live in California. It is a country unto itself. And as Brian mentioned earlier, when Californians voted for medical marijuana in 1996, it changed everything. Now 14 states in the District of Columbia have medical marijuana. So if passes prologue, Brian, I think you guys are going to lose on this topic, and we're going to have marijuana after California votes for it. It's going to happen all around the country. I'm not going to smoke.
If we do, then America will lose, because we're going to have a lot more drug driving. We're going to have people using a lot more drugs in the society.
Thankfully, we won't.
Is it possible, though, that the same people who drink alcohol will then decide? Let me ask you, Brian, is it possible that the same people who want to have a beer, want to have a couple of glasses of wine, a couple of shots of whiskey, that those are the same people that will then smoke pot as opposed to drinking? So you're not going to have more people driving
these
impaired?
aren't mutually exclusive. They'll use them together. Much like
they actually
people
don't
mix.
No.
Well, that's not true.
Brian, you and I are
getting
both
your
examples.
stats
Brian,
from?
you are saying you only use alcohol and tobacco, right?
I use them sometimes at the same time.
Right. Well, Brian, I don't use alcohol and tobacco, even though they're lawful, but I use cannabis. So I'm sorry. I think you're wrong when you say that people do these things collectively. You might choose to conflate your drugs. I just choose to use cannabis.
Well, you're one example, my friend, but you see a lot of people, and you see a lot of examples, and we've seen this publicly of people drinking and using drugs and getting arrested, and they're mixing both of those drugs.
But you see people drinking and getting arrested too.
Brian, what you're failing to do is make the distinction between the use of a substance and the abuse. You and I can readily agree nobody should be driving impaired on anything, whether it's legal or not. But it's in the false paradigm that's saying that any use of marijuana, whether it's medicinal, whether it's industrial, whether it's an adult like me who pays 1/3 of my taxes to the government, how could it possibly be that that government would violently come into my home in the middle of the night and try to stop me from engaging in a behavior that you actually engage in?
Does that happen? People kicking down your door to see what you're smoking?
Well,
I don't want to pay my tax dollars for Obamacare to pay for your health care problems.
By the way, Brian, every 30
ruin your lungs.
Brian, you mean like when you're smoking tobacco? Brian, really?
Brian, you're saying you chew tobacco. You're not saying you smoke.
No.
Yeah,
you're not a smoker.
Yeah, so Brian, Brian only wants his teeth to fall out. No problem, Brian. Lose your teeth. My grandfather lost his teeth at 40. Chewing tobacco.
This back into a more reasonable area. I mean,
right? Why are you a prohibitionist?
You're a prohibitionist too. You're for prohibition of heroin and all these other drugs.
That's right.
Now,
I am.
Who's in the mainstream of America? Me, who doesn't believe that marijuana should be available for kids and adults. To
I don't think it should be for kids.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me take a step back.
Okay, but alcohol is legal, and it's not supposed, and kids aren't supposed to get it.
ABC News Now. Good to know.
Brian, you know the kids aren't supposed to get alcohol. You aren't supposed to get it until you're 21.
Marijuana?
Come on. You know that.
What's that?
You know that it's entirely possible to say this thing is legal just the way alcohol is, and say you can only have it once you're over the age of 21. Kids are getting it anyway, and we're getting a lot of tweets from people saying kids are getting it because it's illegal. And once it's legal, they're going to have a harder time.
Yeah, Brian,
it'll be much easier to get it if you're a kid. I mean, think about how easy it is to get marijuana.
Brian, do you care?
Do you care? Brian, if you're underage, a lot easier than to get marijuana.
Brian, actually, you're absolutely incorrect. There are 2 sets of data the government takes: the household survey and the Monitoring the Future program. I study this stuff. Apparently you don't. Since 1999, children admit it's easier to get non-taxed uncontrolled marijuana as compared to controlled and taxed products like alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceuticals. You are just simply incorrect, and I don't see how you can justify your position when you claim you don't want children to access marijuana.
I don't know where you're getting your stats
I just
from, my
listened
friend.
to
Is this from your
Alan,
own
let me ask you,
organization
Alan,
doing a study?
let me ask you,
Alan,
isn't it easy for kids to get alcohol right from their parents' houses? So if their parents are smoking pot, they're going to be able to get that as well.
It's just a common sense argument.
That's where everybody starts, right? They first go to mom and dad's liquor cabinet, and that's where they get their first taste of alcohol.
If that is true where you and maybe I got our first taste of alcohol, that does not justify making it illegal, does it? I don't see how that makes it justify illegal. How does it justify illegal that maybe Vicky and I got alcohol before we were 21?
Parents, if I as a parent are buying marijuana for recreational purposes, it's going to be real easy for my kids to get it. It just makes logical sense that if you run into a 7-Eleven and can buy some marijuana, it's going to be easy for kids to get
Brian,
it. You don't need to do a study on that.
I think it's going to be more control than that. But let me ask you.
It's going to be a lot more
Brian,
control.
Let me ask you about law enforcement.
Would not want it to be controlled like that.
Brian,
he wants everybody to have access to it.
Brian, would law enforcement like to have resources that they're spending on pot to go to other things? Would they like to be freed up from that?
Well, it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy to say that all of a sudden you legalize marijuana and all these arrests are going to go down. You're going to have more drug driving because more people are going to be smoking pot. You're going to have more problems if people are drugged up.
I've got a commenter who said crime will drop. You don't see beer distributors out there killing each other in the street.
They don't. You see people who are drunk fighting a lot. I mean, you do see a lot of negative outcomes as a result of people who are
Brian, you're pointing to the misuse of alcohol. Everybody in this studio, everybody who's listening agrees people shouldn't misuse alcohol. But you are not making any logical or rational argument why this... Excuse me, no you're not, because you're a hypocrite if you use alcohol and tobacco, and yet you think someone like me should be in a cage.
I don't use heroin. I don't use crystal meth.
Well, good for you.
Do you?
Wait, let me ask.
I don't.
Then you're a hypocrite. Because you want to let some drugs be legal and other drugs not be.
Let me get in here and ask you to bring out your crystal balls. Brian, do you think that this is going to pass in California? And if it passes in California, do you think it's going to spread? I'll ask both of you that.
I'll say no, and because I think the people of California... It's okay. I mean, I understand why the people of California would want medical marijuana. There are rational reasons for having medical marijuana, but there's no rational reason to just allow everybody to go out and buy marijuana for purely recreational purposes. It'll cause more crime in the state, and it's not going to bring in all that much revenue because you have so many outcomes that are bad as a result of marijuana use. Probably more money will go out of the state coffers as a result.
It passes prologue. We're going to see the legalization of marijuana. Conservatives and liberals both agree across all the spectrums. Prohibition is a failure. Those that justify it make no sense in a free market capital system like ours. None at all. None at all.
All right, we've got about a minute left. Let me ask both of you in 30 seconds to give me each of you get 30 seconds. Brian, let me start with you. Give me your final thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, I think reasonable people can have a disagreement about a lot of issues, but I don't think reasonable people can disagree on one fact, that we have a society that already uses too many drugs. We need to slow that down, not make it more accessible.
Prohibition has failed after 73 years, arresting somebody every 37 seconds, spending tens of billions of dollars, wasted tax dollars every year, is feckless, flaccid. It hasn't achieved any of the government's stated goals. Ironically, like tobacco, in my lifetime, which has been cut in half, we didn't arrest anybody for it. We didn't test anybody's pee. We didn't racially profile. We didn't take away student loans. We didn't do all of these things to achieve the stated goal of reducing tobacco use. We simply taxed it at higher levels, and we didn't advertise it. We didn't make it illegal, and we didn't make the user a criminal. So if passes prologue and we want to see a reduction in marijuana use, we need to have a system like tobacco where it's legal and it's educated against.
All right. That was a very spirited discussion. I want to say thanks to both of our guests, to Brian Darling and to Alan St. Pierre. It was wonderful having both of you on. We could keep this going for another hour. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thanks for your tweets, and we'll see you back here next Monday at 12:30.
Well, fortunately, we can keep it going for every weekday. This is Normal Show Live, where we cover these topics every weekday, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, with replays at 3, 5, 7, and 9 p.m. Pacific. You can also download us directly from our blog, the Stash blog, at stash.normal.org, or pick us up on iTunes. Just look for the Normal Daily Audio Stash. For Cannabis Carrie and Ganja John, I'm Radical Russ. Check out normal.org, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.